activities.
Here are the top stories of the news. APC National Vice Chairman Salihul Lukman gives the party's national chairman a week ultimatum to convene NEC meeting. At least 214 persons killed in Kaduna State from January to March 2023. On the foreign scene, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has paid his first visit to war-torn Ukraine. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. We begin with politics, where the National Vice Chairman of the All Progressives Congress Northwest, Salihul Lukman, has given the National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, a week ultimatum to convene a National Executive Committee NEC meeting. Mr. Lukman made the demand yesterday in an open letter to Senator Abdullahi Adamu titled Restoring Constitutional Order in APC Not Negotiable. According to the APC Vice Chairman, the open letter aims to return the party to its foundation, which he said requires mobilizing all like-minded party leaders and members in the crusade to restore constitutional order in the party. He noted that if by the end of the 1 week notice no action is taken to convene a NEC meeting, it will not hesitate to take further actions, including approaching the judiciary to enforce compliance with the provision of the party's constitution. The Zamfara State Governor-elect Dr. Dauda Lawal has constituted a 60-member transition committee in order to prepare ground for his swearing-in on May 29. The media aide to the governor-elect Sulaiman Bala Idris disclosed this in a statement yesterday, stating that the committee was charged with the responsibility of liaising with the outgoing administration of Governor Bello Matawale. He disclosed that a former Inspector General of Police Muhammad Abubakar was appointed as the chair of the committee, while Dr. Hamza Muhammad will serve as the secretary. Mr. Idris noted that the committee will engage ministries, departments, as well as government agencies and review the finances of the outgoing government with a focus on receipts, assets, and liabilities, among others. He further added that a date for the inauguration of the Governorship Transition Committee would be announced in due course. In Adamawa, the Commandant General of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, Ahmed Audi, has summoned the State Commandant, Muhammad Bello, to the Corps National Headquarters, Abuja. This was contained in a statement signed by the Corps spokesperson, Olushola Odumosu, yesterday. He revealed that the summon was issued following the controversy that surrounded the state governorship supplementary election, where security agencies were accused of complicity. He noted that the NSCDC boss has directed the commandant to immediately hand over affairs of the state command to its immediate subordinate. The supplementary election held in the state on Saturday, April 15, after the election of March 18 was declared inconclusive by INEC following certain irregularities. Meanwhile, Governor of Adamawa State, Amadu Fintiri, and the Deputy Governor-elect, Kaletapwa Farota, has received their certificates of return in Abuja. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, presented the certificates to the newly re-elected governor and his deputy yesterday at its national headquarters. Governor Fintiri had on Tuesday emerged winner of a drama-filled supplementary election in Adamawa State. Governor Fintiri, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), polled 430,861 votes, defeating Aisha to Binani Dahiru of the All Progressives Congress (APC), who got 398,738 votes.
Gone through in the last 1 month, so that together as stakeholders we'll continue to build on the process, we'll continue to build on our democracy to improve and deepen the democracy. One apology I have to make is what happened to the two excellent commissioners in my state. I take the blame and I take apology. I'm sorry for what the hoodlums and the discounts did for the mistaken identity that they thought they were hood and they will never be. They are excellent gentlemen. I've never met them in person, but I cherish and I admire their good work. For Nigerians that have stood for this democracy and the international community, I say thank you.
To security matters, the Kaduna state government has said that no fewer than 214 persons were killed in attacks by terrorists, communal clashes, and reprisals across the state from January to March 2023. The State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruwan, disclosed this in the 2023 first quarter security report presented to the State Security Council. Mr. Aruwa explained that 196 males, 14 females, and 4 minors were killed, while 746 citizens were kidnapped during the period under review. He further revealed that the Kaduna Central Senatorial District remains top on the list with 115 deaths. Governor Nasser El-Rufai, receiving the report, appealed to the federal government to escalate security operations across the 7 frontline states of the Northwest. In the meantime, suspected bandits have killed 2 immigration officers along the Takum-Usa local government area, Link Road in Taraba State. Confirming the incident, police public relations officer in the state, Abdullahi Usman, said the officers were not only shot dead, but had machete cuts on their bodies with their motorcycle abandoned. The officers were identified as Inspectors Adike Austin and Uzo James of the Immigration Department attached to the Usa local government checkpoint. Mr. Usman disclosed that their remains have been deposited at the morgue for autopsy with a full-scale investigation launched, adding that the killing of the immigration officers is not related to the ongoing Headers Farmers crisis in the area. Elsewhere, the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, has denied knowledge of the directive mandating the retirement of the Acting Comptroller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Isa Idris. The minister fielding questions from the State House correspondents at the end of yesterday's weekly Federal Executive Council FEC meeting said the news was Greek to him. The governing board of the Nigeria Immigration Service on Wednesday served a retirement notice to the Acting Comptroller General of the service, Isa Idris, effective on or before April 24, 2023. In the memo, the board cited the expiration of the 1-year extension of service granted by President Muhammadu Buhari, directing the immigration boss to hand over to the most senior Deputy Comptroller General. Moving on, the federal government has declared Friday, April 21st and Monday, April 24th, 2023 as public holidays to mark this year's Eid al-Fitr celebration. Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola made the declaration on behalf of the federal government. According to a statement by the Permanent Secretary Shuaib Balgore, he congratulated all Muslims for the successful completion of the holy month of Ramadan. Mr. Aregbesola called on all Muslims to imbibe and practice the virtues of kindness, love, tolerance, peace, self-denial, sacrifice, and good neighborliness, as exemplified by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. You're watching Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after this break.
The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trades and investments of Western powers. Western Spring Television identifies Berlin Conference as a major event in history. Dramatist, playwright, and icon of Yoruba thematic arts, Duro Ladipo was born December 18, 1931 in Osogbo, southwest Nigeria. His clergyman father christened him Timothy. His other names, Duro Dola, Duro Shomo, Duro Rike, reflected his persona and the circumstances that surrounded his birth. The legendary stage actor had in several public fora identified himself as one of the greatest abikus born to die in this world. Family records reveal how he was born and died 13 times. The intertwining names he bore thus lent credence to his spiritism. Duro Ladipo was one of the best known and world-acclaimed Yoruba dramatists to emerge from post-colonial Africa. His notable works, Obakoso, Obawaja, and Moremi, took him beyond Africa to several parts of the world. By the time Duro Ladipo died on 11 March 1978, Nigeria's first cultural ambassador had acquired a towering image as an artist whose works adorn the frontage of Trenchard Hall, University of Ibadan. Western Spring Television identifies Duro Ladipo as a major character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history.
Welcome back. In Oyo State, the government has vowed to prosecute those it referred to as undesirable elements that engage in recruitment fraud with the express purpose of defrauding the general public. A fictitious list making the rounds on social media claims the State Universal Basic Education Board has started a hiring process. However, in a statement yesterday, the board chairman Nureni Adeniran asked the public to exercise caution and avoid doing business with con artists posing as recruitment representatives for the UBE. According to him, management had started looking for people responsible for the fraudulent recruitment and will turn them in if they are apprehended. Talking business, the Debt Management Office DMO has dismissed reports that Nigeria has defaulted in the repayment of loans obtained from China. The agency, in a statement in Abuja yesterday, said claims that the country was facing penalties amounting to 41.31 billion naira was also untrue. It describes the reports as false and misleading and urged the public to ignore them. The DMO further assured that the country was fully committed to meeting all its debt obligations as and when due. Rumors making round early this week had claimed that Nigeria defaulted in its debt repayment to China, for which a penalty of 41.31 billion naira was awarded. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has said it seeks constructive and fair economic ties with China, but will protect its national security interests and push back against China's actions to dominate foreign competitors. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is expected to lay out the Biden administration's principal objectives for the economic relationship between the world's two largest economies in a speech later today. In a speech to be delivered by Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, Ms. Yellen is expected to disclose President Biden administration's economic priorities on China. Ms. Yellen, who has said she still hopes to visit Beijing to meet with our new economic counterparts, said the United States remains the world's largest and most dynamic economy. Elsewhere, Pakistan has placed its first order for discounted Russian crude oil under a new deal struck between Islamabad and Moscow. The country's petroleum minister Musaddiq Malik made this known, stating that one cargo is set to dock at the Karachi port in May. He noted that the deal will see Pakistan buy only crude oil, not refined fuels, with imports expected to reach 100,000 barrels per day. If the first transaction goes through smoothly, Pakistan's purchase gives Russia a new outlet for its crude, adding to Moscow's growing sales to India and China, as it redirects volumes from Western markets where its oil has been banned in the wake of the Ukraine conflict. On the foreign scene, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has paid his first visit to Kyiv since Russia invaded Ukraine last year. During his visit, Mr. Stoltenberg was said to have paid his respects to Ukrainian soldiers who had been killed in the war and reviewed damaged Russian military equipment. The NATO chief's visit was announced earlier on Thursday. The NATO alliance has supported Ukraine, with most member states sending weapons but not troops. In Africa, battles are still raging near the headquarters of the Sudan's Army General Command and in the capital's twin city of Omdurman. It was gathered that the Army's Air Force was still shelling several RSF targets in Khartoum and showing signs that confrontations have not slowed down despite the ceasefire announced yesterday. The 24-hour ceasefire was supposed to begin at 6 p.m. local time yesterday. It is the second day running that a proposed ceasefire has failed to hold. Meanwhile, the UN's World Health Organization said as of yesterday, at least 296 people had been killed and more than 3,000 wounded since fighting began. In Asia, a court in India's western state of Gujarat has rejected Congress leader Rahul Gandhi's petition seeking a stay of conviction in a defamation case. The district court in Surat City had sentenced Gandhi to 2 years in prison for his 2019 remarks referring to two fugitive Indian businessmen, both surnamed Modi. In an election rally that year, the 52-year-old leader had quizzed why all thieves have made the name Modi. The ruling has increased uncertainty over whether the leader of the Indian National Congress will be able to contest the general election due next year. Now to some sports stories. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says injured defenders William Saliba and Alexander Zinchenko will not be fit to play against Southampton tomorrow. He noted that the club will have to wait a little bit more for William, as he is not progressing as quickly as they had hoped. The Arsenal boss also confirms that forward Bukayo Saka will remain on penalty duties despite his miss against West Ham.
In William, we are still to wait a little bit more. He's not progressing as quick as we hoped. He's a bit delicate. and we want to be very certain when we push him that he's ready to absorb the load and the risk that we would take, and at the moment that's not possible to do.
When I spoke to you a few weeks ago, you didn't think it was an end of season. Are you a bit more concerned it might be now?
I don't know. It's a bit early to do. Probably next week we're going to have more certainty. There is some evolution. He's doing more activity, but it's not there yet to start to throw him the pitch at the level that the sessions demand to compete in this league.
Inter Milan secured a historic Champions League semi-final with arch-rival AC Milan despite being held by Benfica at an ecstatic San Siro. Leading 2-0 from the first leg in Lisbon, Inter increased their aggregate lead following Nicolo Barella's sumptuous finish before a bullet header by Frederic Osne gave Benfica hope. Argentina World Cup winner Lautaro Martinez and substitute Joaquin Correa made it 5-1 on aggregate before Benfica scored 2 late goals through Antonio Silva and Peter Musa. Inter have lost 4 of their past 5 games in Syria to drop out of the Champions League places, but Simone Inzaghi's side can now look forward to 2 mouth-watering matches against Milan, who knocked out Napoli on Tuesday for a place in the final. Before we end the news, here is a recap of our top stories. The National Vice Chairman of the All Progressives Congress Northwest, Salihu Lukman, has given the National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, a week ultimatum to convene a National Executive Committee NEC meeting. The Kaduna State government has said that no fewer than 214 persons were killed in attacks by terrorists, communal clashes, and reprisals across the state from January to March 2023. On the foreign scene, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has paid his first visit to Kyiv since Russia invaded Ukraine last year. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. That ends Spring News at 12. I am Evelyn Ohiola. Thank you so much for your time.